Hello and welcome to Week in Review, episode number 103. My name is Sean, and it is that time of year. It is time to count down the best of the fourth quarter and give you my picks for the best games and best movies of the year. We'll also look forward to this week's new releases, and I'll tell you about the streams happening over on twitch.tv/JohnSourceRex. For this quarter's video, let's start with the movie side, as I feel like that's the clearer, easier to digest picture. Before we jump into the fourth quarter, let's jump back to the third quarter and give you a quick recap. My top 10 movies of the year looked like this. Number 1, Booksmart. Number 2, The Farewell. Number 3, Toy Story 4. Number 4, Peanut Butter Falcon. Number 5, Art of Self-Defense. Number 6, Family. Number 7, Rocket Man. Number 8, Lego Movie 2. Number 9, Us. I lost track of what I was doing with my fingers. And number 10 was Ready or Not. I also pointed out 4 movies that I was looking forward to: The Lighthouse, Jojo Rabbit, Honey Boy, and Dolomite Is My Name. I only missed 1 movie again this quarter, which means I only missed 2 of the movies that I mentioned all year long. If you exclude My Spy, it got pushed back to January, like I said in the last video. It actually got pushed back again to March. It's really weird that I missed Dolomite Is My Name, and I really shouldn't have missed Dolomite Is My Name. My theater watching stubbornness kind of got in my way, and I anticipated that because the movie was going to be down at the Magic Lantern, which is our local indie movie theater, and they get a lot of the Netflix releases, I anticipated it was going to be in theaters longer. It was only in theaters for 6 or 7 days. I didn't really have an opportunity. I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember the specific reason I wasn't able to make it to the theater. Could have been a timing thing, could have been I just didn't have the cash for it at the time. But unfortunately, I missed Dolomite Is My Name, which is a bummer because it's been sitting on Netflix for the last 2 months or whatever, and I just never watched it. Sorry. As for the movies I did see, I saw a lot of great stuff in the fourth quarter, and my top 5 breaks down like this. Number 1 is Waves. Number 2 is Parasite. Number 3, Uncut Gems. Number 4, Honey Boy. And number 5 is The Lighthouse. The Lighthouse kind of just ekes in just above stuff like Jojo Rabbit. And 2 movies that I want to shout out that I didn't actually cover on the show. Pain and Glory, which is a fantastic movie starring Antonio Banderas that is really beautiful in its simplicity, and I love the idea that it worked with that kind of these chance meetings that are giving him the opportunity to reconcile with things of his past and moving on with his life and trying to get back to where he wants to be. I thought was really effective. Antonio Banderas is fantastic in this movie. I can't stress it enough. He is so good. I think it's an absolutely fantastic film. The other movie that I want to give a quick shout out to was Charlie's Angels. It's a ton of fun. I really enjoyed myself with it. It succeeds on the strength of its cast, led by Kristen Stewart with Elizabeth Banks. I really like the chemistry and the back and forth and the banter between all of the characters. I thought it was a really fun movie. It does get a little bit bogged down in kind of spy movie tropes of double crosses and an extra level of double crosses that I didn't think it really needed to go to, and it kind of detracts from what the main appeal of the movie was to me, and that was the interaction between the 4 if you include Elizabeth Banks, kind of the main characters that they're working with. I wish that they would have toned down the double crosses to give us a little bit more backstory so we care about the angels just a little bit more. But what it is still great, and I had a ton of fun with it. So how do these 5 movies from quarter 4 factor into the overall top 10? My overall 2019 top 10 list looks like this. Number 1, Booksmart. Nothing ever came close to it. It's absolutely magnificent. I love that movie so very much. Number 2 is The Farewell. It's a very special movie. I don't know if I will ever watch it again. Honestly, it was so emotionally devastating and so beautifully done. It stuck with me way after the credits rolled, and it has been consistently in that number 2 slot. It is absolutely masterful. Number 3 is Waves, a film that I really love. Another one that stuck with me well after the credits rolled. I loved the way that they tweaked with the aspect ratio and messed with the framing to push things forward from a story perspective and from a thematic perspective. I think it is one of the best acted movies of the year. I think it's absolutely incredible. It has a very interesting use of color palette shifting, where it starts with very bright limes and sky blues and pinks, and as the movie kind of slid into its darker territory, it switched to maroons and night blues and forest greens. And I just thought it was really interesting the way that they used that. Number 4 is Parasite, an absolutely magnificent movie. I loved all of it. The middle little twist that happens is so wonderfully out of nowhere, and Parasite is so damn good. Number 5, Toy Story 4. That franchise continues to be above and beyond any other franchise that I have ever seen in my life. I love it so very much. It's a beautiful conclusion to this story, and I thought it was really bold and interesting for them to go in the direction that they went in. I also just loved it. Toy Story has a very special place in my heart, and for it to be at the consistent level of excellence it's been at for the last literal 25 years, 24 years when that movie came out, is absolutely incredible. They keep coming up with sequels that are as good, if not even better than some of the originals. A fantastic movie. Number 5, Uncut Gems. A very pleasant surprise, a tension-fueled, just like mercilessly tense movie that I really liked. Obviously, I keep saying that I really liked all these movies. They're in my top 10. Of course, I really liked them. What I liked specifically about this movie was Adam Sandler's performance. That's out of the ordinary for him. He's fantastic in it. I thought his character was fascinating to watch. I loved Kevin Garnett, and it was so engrossing to just watch him hold this like wire thin plan together with all these plates spinning at the same time, as basically like every conversation he has with someone is someone trying to hustle him and him trying to hustle someone, and he owes money all over town. It's a great movie. It's great. Number 7 and number 8 are a Shia LaBeouf two for. Number 7, we have Peanut Butter Falcon. Number 8, Honey Boy. Two very different styles of movies, both anchored by great performances from Shia LaBeouf. Peanut Butter Falcon is a short and sweet, very, very, very sweet movie that is heartfelt and humorous. It has beautiful cinematography. It's a wonderful little indie comedy that's very uplifting and a joy to watch. It's fantastic. Honey Boy, being a very different kind of movie, is basically just therapy on screen. It deals with the relationship between LaBeouf and his father, who Shia LaBeouf plays in this film. It's a very unique and interesting movie that really stuck with me and really connected with me in a way that not a lot of other movies did this year. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. I just love talking about this stuff because like all this stuff is good. All this stuff is good. And then rounding out the top 10, we have another little double that comes with the asterisk of they really worked for me. Don't know how well they're going to work for everyone else. Number 9 is The Art of Self-Defense, which is like a very bitingly dark, pitch black comedy that is a satire of like toxic masculinity. It's really interesting. It definitely worked for me when I talked about it originally, and when I put it on the rankings, I described it as a Sean ass movie. It does come with the asterisk of like I don't know how well this is going to work outside of like me. It really stuck with me and spoke to me. You can say the same thing for number 10, Family. Another movie that the style of humor is definitely not for everyone. I think this one is a little easier to go like, hey, this one is definitely a movie for me. I think that the biggest criticism you can give against Family is the humor is kind of repetitive. And while it worked for me, it's not going to work for everyone. I liked the way that they used her behaviors to show her gradual change over it. I think the story's quirky and weird. It has a great little performance from Kate McKinnon, who's in a very small supporting role. I really thought it was a very funny and overall like very positive movie, which isn't necessarily something you would think going into it. But walking out of it thinking like, wow, that was really positive, really hammers home the point of it and the character change over the character's gradual change over the course of the film. So those are your top 10 movies. Just a couple of movies that missed out on the top 10, stuff like Rocket Man, fantastic, you should watch it. Lego Movie 2, Us, Ready or Not, The Lighthouse, Jojo Rabbit. All of those are very much worth your time. You could probably go 15, maybe even 20 deep with some of the other movies that I've talked about over the year. It's been a really great year for movies, which is absolutely fantastic. I love talking about this stuff. I love sharing with you, the audience who chooses to watch this video, like what I think of these movies, how enthusiastic I am for some of these movies, maybe some of them that come up that I really don't like. It's great. I really enjoy it. So there you go. There's your top 10 movies of 2019. Now that we've covered 2019's best, we can look forward to 2020 and what quarter one has for us. I'm going to break this down into two categories. The first category is the stuff that I'm really amped for. The new Pixar movie Onward comes out on March 6th, and I'm really excited to see what they do with A Quiet Place Part 2, which comes out on March 20th. The other level is stuff that I'm interested in, or at least curious about, but not like super amped, and kind of that category of like, if I miss it, it's not that big of a deal. That would be stuff like Birds of Prey, which is out on February 7th, Sonic the Hedgehog, which is out on February 14th, The Rhythm Section, which hits theaters on January 31st, and Like a Boss, which is out on January 10th. Admittedly, it's kind of a slow start as far as the movies are concerned. I did list a bunch of them, but there are really only two that stand out above everything else. Is like, I'm going to be sure to be there as soon as I can in the theater to see those movies. Thankfully, the movies have been solid all year round, because the games side of things has been a complete mess throughout most of the year. I've said it before, and I'll repeat it for you if you're a brand new viewer, but this has been one of those rare years where a bunch of games come out, but none of them really speak to me personally, and that is reflected in the list as it stands right now. At the end of quarter three, the list looks like this. It's Untitled Goose Game, Yoshi's Crafted World, Man of Medan, Bus Sim, Sea of Solitude, The Occupation, Wreckfest, and Super Mario Maker 2. That's only 8 games, because I haven't actually played a ton of games, and a lot of games I played for a little bit and kind of walked away from. That was something that continued into the fourth quarter. I was looking forward to stuff like Concrete Genie, which I played all the way through and never talked about on the show. It was a game that I enjoyed, even though I think the story is a little bit weak. I wasn't the biggest fan in the world of why the bullies were the way the bullies were, and I thought that their switches were a little too easily flipped from bullying this kid to not bullying him anymore, and maybe even the main character was a little bit too forgiving in how rude they were to him. The game was interesting from a gameplay perspective. It focuses a lot on art and creating, and I thought that was really cool. It does have a little bit of weirdness in that you do a lot of painting and stuff on the walls, but you don't always have the most patterns at your disposal, and I thought that that was a little disproportionate. Like, there was a little bit too much for the amount that you had. It also has a weird shift to a more combative final third of the game. The first 4 of the 6 chapters are a lot about creating art and kind of being stealthy to avoid the bullies. In the last section, it turns into something a little bit different. It was kind of a weird shift, but it doesn't last all that long, and it just makes it feel a little bit uneven. But overall, I really did like it. I think it has a beautiful art style. I liked the way the animation looked. I thought that the patterns that you did use were beautiful. They looked nice. It's a really good game that I enjoyed, and it has some things that I was like not super hot on, but I also don't think that they detract so much from the game that it becomes a problem. It's just some stuff that I was like, no, I'm not really feeling this, but, you know, maybe you would. I think it's well worth a playthrough, and it's worth the price of admission. And by admission, I mean you go to the store. You don't have to pay to get into the GameStop, but you have to pay to buy the game. The other game that I mentioned that I was specifically going to play was The Outer Worlds. This is a weird one because it falls into that weird camp where I started it, played for a while, and kind of just fell off. It's a nice game to look at and walk around. I enjoyed looking at the worlds, and the art style and art direction's fantastic. The characters are super great. I really like Pavarti. She is just tremendous. But there's something about the way the game blocks your progress that was kind of a turnoff to me. It has a very simple story, and it has to have a very simple story. You're a member of a crew that was supposed to be on a ship that was supposed to go somewhere. You got frozen and lost, and this mad scientist guy finds you, and you need to go find a specific thing to thaw out the rest of your crewmates. Okay, that's a very simple plot. That's the plot of the game because of the way that the game is designed. The way the game blocks your progress is kind of weird. After you leave the first planet, you land on your next seeming objective, only for it to be blocked behind you needing an absurd number of credits. I think it's like 99,999 or something like that. Maybe it's like 60,000. I don't know. It was a number that I looked at and I was like, I don't realistically know how anyone would have that number of credits or the items to sell to get that number of credits at this point in the game. And what that does is it forces you to walk around the ship and explore and follow some other quest lines and do all that sort of stuff. it just didn't feel super organic. Like the game specifically stopped you so that you could go explore other avenues. Some of it's good. The Pavarti stuff is really interesting and really, really well done. Some of it is a little less interesting. One of the other missions, I had to like use some stealth mechanic that took me a very long time to figure out. For whatever reason, I just kind of fell off and never went back. The bright side is that the story isn't all that complex and it's easy to come back into after a while away. It plays really well. It looks really nice. I don't know why I didn't play more of it. It's that one's a real puzzler of a game this year. So technically I played through both of the games that I mentioned in last quarter's video. I also mentioned a few other games that I was kind of debating. I mentioned stuff like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which was a game that did not click with me. I did not enjoy that game. There was one stream of it that was about 3 hours, and I walked away going like, I see the hook of this game. It's not for me. I thought the combat was just too slow. It wasn't, I walked away going like, nope, I don't want to bang my head against the wall and do this anymore. I also mentioned Need for Speed Heat, which was another game that I played on stream, played for about 3 hours. I kind of walked away frustrated with the progression mechanics in it. On the surface level, it's actually kind of interesting. You can either race in circuits during the day or you can do nighttime racing. Where I don't like it is that the nighttime racing you have to do to level up your reputation. If you level up your reputation, you unlock stuff that you can buy in the shop. But you don't get any credits. You have to get credits through doing the daytime missions. So you have to do this kind of back and forth balancing act of like, I'm going to do a bunch of night races, get my rep up so that I can go back and do day races and get new parts to upgrade my car. It's bringing in an RPG mechanic and like gear score stuff that I didn't think was very interesting. It also has a really slow progression. I didn't feel like my car was that much better in the granted very limited number of hours. I think it could have been a little bit quicker and made me feel like I was making better progress. I didn't out and out dislike the game, but it was also enough of a barrier. The progression was enough of a barrier that I walked away going like, I'm fine. I don't really know if I'm going to come back to this, and I'm totally okay with that. I also mentioned Return of the Oberdin, which I did not play, and Pokemon Sword/Shield, they're the same game, which I bought a copy of and just haven't started, but I will be starting that one soon. One of the games that I did play that I didn't talk about on this show and didn't list because I didn't really know about it until the last minute was Black Sad Under the Skin. This is a really interesting game. It's a detective game. Think kind of like LA Noire meets like a Telltale game. It has like dialogue options and stuff like that, but you also have to piece together clues to figure out who killed not the main character, but who killed the character of Joe Dunn. It's really interesting. It has some weird gameplay stuff. It didn't run the best. It crashed a couple of times. There were some frame rate issues here or there. I liked what it was doing. It gets a little bit bloated in the middle section where they start really throwing in a bunch of different characters, and it seems to struggle to keep that balance and keep everyone in your head and exactly where they come from and what they're doing. There's a couple of characters that have very thin wires to the main plot, and I think that some of that's stretched a little bit thin and is probably more supposed to be used as a misdirect, but it just kind of felt like this person could have not been in the game and it totally would have not affected the outcome of the story. The game plays pretty well. There are a couple of parts where it is very much that like kind of adventure game point and click puzzle sort of thing, where there were a couple of times I was banging my head against the wall. Specifically one time you're in a grave site and you have to do things in a very specific order. Even though I could kind of see where they were going with it, I was just missing a very small part. That happened a couple of times throughout. It wasn't terrible, but it was notable. There's also a couple of decisions that don't really seem to make any impact on the game, and that includes the very final decision where he poses the question of like very film noir of like, it would leave me wondering, did I make the right choices? And it gives you a yes or a no. And no matter which one you pick, the ending is exactly the same. Because like theoretically, right, if you hit no, you're like, I don't really think I made the right decisions there. In my head, I was thinking, oh, it's going to let me kind of scroll back through, look at the decisions and see kind of what path I went down. And maybe I can go back to a certain point and try and play it out a different way. It doesn't do that. It just lets you walk down an alley. And I was like, oh, okay. Technically, you can go back to a chapter select. It's done in like a comic book thing. It's based off of a comic book. It's interesting. I really liked it. I liked what it was going for. I liked what it was doing. I'm a big fan of like LA Noire. I really like the Telltale stuff. I thought this was a really nice mesh point of those two things. It just has some weird stumbling blocks and some technical difficulties that hold it back from being a like really superb hidden gem. And that's been several of the games that have come out this year where I've been like, man, I really like this, but it has technical problems. It always seems like there's some drawback to some of the stuff, which is why the list is so weird, on top of not liking some of the stuff that is even all that popular. Like, people loved Star Wars. I didn't like it. People loved like Sekiro, and I'm like, nope, I'm good. I don't really need to play that. I'm not a big like Resident Evil 2 guy. Death Stranding has never interested me. It's just one of those weird years. So the games that I played this quarter that I did like, I really did like Black Sad, and I liked Concrete Genie and what it had to offer, and I liked The Outer Worlds, even though I kind of fell off of it, and not kind of, even though I fell off of it, I still really enjoyed what I played of that game. I just don't know what exactly it is that was like, I'm good. I don't know. I even looked back at like streams and stuff, and I'm like, I don't get why I walked away from this. Like, none of this makes sense. The fourth quarter also had the really cool story of me as a content creator getting a code to review a game, and that game was called Woven. It was fine. It also had technical problems, and it also has really weird progression where you can't go back. There's no map. It's just a really weird game, so that would probably slide into the general conversation of things that I played this quarter that I enjoyed. This list is such a mess that I don't really know where all of that stuff goes. Those are just 4 games that I played that weren't random garbage. Like, I spent as much, if not more time, playing NFL Blitz Pro from 2003 as I did some of these hot new releases, and that's just how it goes. What's even weirder is that I actually never reviewed those games on the show, which is just super bizarre to me. And I don't know where to put these on the list, because I didn't really... The games that I completed, I think, had problems, and the game that I walked away from, that was probably the best of that batch, I walked away from, so I don't know really where it goes. So I don't know. I feel like this is one of those years where it's not like a numbered ranking at this point. It's just a list of games that I played that I enjoyed. So you have stuff like Untitled Goose Game, which probably is, in all honesty, my favorite game of the year. I loved it. I recently played it when it came to Xbox Game Pass. It's fantastic. It's funny. I love it from like a puzzle perspective. It was even great to replay, even knowing the solutions, because of the way the AI works. I still thought was fun and engaging. I had a great time with it. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And please give us Untitled be your game, because that was probably the best bit of the Game Awards. Next up would be Yoshi's Crafted World. I'm a sucker for Yoshi. I love Yoshi. It's my favorite. That's why there's a bunch of them here. They're kind of blown out by the light, but they're there. You can see the one all the way on this side. I have to make sure to point to the right side of the screen, because when I'm looking, it doesn't matter. I had fun with it. It's a game that I enjoyed my time with. I enjoyed my experience with. Not really much more to say than that. Man of Medan was a pleasant surprise that was so fun and so engaging and so startling that I had to put it on the list of games that I really enjoyed this year. It's a very simple story. It's kind of like a weird horror thing. It's a goofy good time. I had a goofy good time with it. Good enough for the list. Next up, we have Bus Simulator. If Bus Simulator did not have the technical issues that it does, it would hands down, run away, be my favorite game of the year. I love buses. I love public transportation. It is my favorite thing. I have loved it for now 25 years, probably longer. It is my literal dream to drive a bus in a video game. Every time I get an open world game, I'm like, I gotta find a bus. It's the one thing about LA Noire that I don't like, is they have the most beautiful buses in that game. They are green and yellow, aka Packers colors, and you can't drive them. You can't even get on them. You can't even interact with them. And it hurts me in my heart that I can't drive those buses. But in this game, that's all you do is drive buses. Except for the game doesn't run very well. It crashes routinely. The frame rates drop when the weather is bad, or when there is a holiday, which is like a special event that you're supposed to use to get more money for your bus company, because there are so many more people riding the bus. Unfortunately, all of those extra NPCs bring the game to a screeching halt and often doesn't make it through the entire route. It crashes. The game crashes so frequently. There is also the very personal anecdote of me buying a steering wheel because I was so excited about it and I wanted to play with a steering wheel, and the steering wheel didn't work even though they said it was going to work. I could not get it figured out. It's a huge bummer because I love this game and I love mapping out the routes and I love driving around and picking up passengers and giving change, and all that stuff is so great and it is exactly what I want. It just sucks that it is held back so far by its technical problems. Sea of Solitude is a much more emotional game. It's a very interesting story. It's a somber and reflective game. I liked what it was doing. It's a short and effective experience, and kind of in that Concrete Genie, like, though it is short, it's well worth the price of admission and the experience and the playthrough. Overall, this is probably where I would put something like The Outer Worlds. Then you have The Occupation, a like mysterious detective game. I'm having a little bit of trouble remembering this one because this one was all the way back in March. I enjoyed the time I spent with it. It also had technical problems. It crashed. I think I broke the game multiple times during it, but I liked what it was doing. It was in real time, so like if you had a meeting at 3, you had a literal watch that was moving in real time. So you got there like 2:40, or not 2:45, like 1:45. You had an hour and 15 minutes to try and get as much evidence as you could, to ask questions, to progress the story. Interesting concept. Again, another one of these games. I feel like that's more the year that I am having, is the big releases aren't doing it for me. I'm playing smaller releases that are really held back by technical problems. I liked what The Occupation was doing. I thought it was a good game. I really enjoyed it. It felt like it was something that spoke specifically to me. Continuing the trend of games that were great that unfortunately have technical problems is Wreckfest, though Wreckfest does come with the caveat that they have updated the game, and I do think it runs a little bit better. I played it recently and it seems like it's doing just fine. I wasn't really paying that much attention to stuff like load times, which I know were a problem when they initially released, but the game runs well. It seems like the frame rate's holding up a little bit better. I remember specifically when the game initially released that the frame rate would just drop if you had 24 buses. I'm sure I ran more bus races and it seemed like it was running fine. Wreckfest is a game that is fun to play. You just drive around. The name of the game is Wreckfest, and that's what you're doing. You're wrecking cars. There are a variety of different events. You have races, you have demolition derbies, figure eights, all kinds of stuff. It's a really fun game, worth checking out. Super Mario Maker 2 is a bit of an odd game because I only played about a third of it. And by a third of it, I mean I only played one of the 3 available modes. I only played the created courses. I didn't really mess around with the single player stuff, and I definitely did not create anything. Had a good time when I played it. Didn't play it much beyond when I initially played it, but I still enjoyed my time with it enough to feel that it warranted a spot on the list. And then rounding out this list, I would put Black Sad, which I preferred just a little bit over Concrete Genie, which would just be in that like 11th slot. So I'm kind of just winging a list there. I don't know. None of this stuff feels like it's super concrete in its positions. Again, a lot of the games were great that had technical limitations, and the big stuff just didn't really speak to me, and that's kind of how 2019 went as far as the games are concerned. But now that 2019 is done, we can look forward to 2020, and 2020 is going to be a very good year for games. There are new consoles coming out next year, there's a new Halo coming out next year, and there are 3 games that I have my eye on. All of them come out in March, weirdly enough. Number 1, the easiest pick for me, is Doom Eternal, which originally was on my looking forward to in the 4th quarter list, but it got delayed like at the last minute, right I think it was like a day before I was recording the video, something like that. It got pushed, thankfully, otherwise I would have looked like a big ol' idiot. But that releases on March 20th. I'm very excited. Also in March we have Final Fantasy VII Remake. I kind of have been interested in this game for a while, but the E3 demo really sold me on it so much that I actually went out and bought a PlayStation 1 copy of the original Final Fantasy VII so that I could try and play through what the new game is supposed to be before the new game comes out, and then kind of compare and contrast and see what was different. Final Fantasy VII, for whatever reason, has always been a game that I've wanted to play, but I've just never gotten around to it, and this is the perfect opportunity for me to do that. So on March 3rd, I'll get my opportunity to do that, and then a little bit before that, I'll play the original PlayStation 1 version. And then last but certainly not least is Animal Crossing. I wouldn't normally care about Animal Crossing, but I got really into Stardew Valley. It's a series that is at least interesting to me, Animal Crossing is, and I'm going to go ahead and just try the new one. So I put that on my list. I was like, you know what? Screw it. Just put it on there. Go to the store on March 19th at like 9 p.m. and buy Doom and Animal Crossing like a true gamer. You'll be able to catch streams of all of those games and more games over on twitch.tv/ShaunosaurusRex if you're interested. Now that we've covered what to look forward to in the far-flung future, let's take a look at what we can look forward to this week. On Blu-ray, The Lighthouse is out. It's an absolutely fantastic movie that I very much enjoyed. In theaters this week, Just Mercy, Underwater, Like a Boss, and 1917, which just won the Golden Globe for Best Picture Drama. It should have, but that's where we are. And there's nothing to report as far as games are concerned. Everybody's still sleeping in the game world. Streams look like this for the week on twitch.tv/ShaunosaurusRex. Wednesday is Grab Bag episodes number 3 and number 4. Friday is going to be the start of Pokemon Sword, and Saturday will continue Pokemon Sword, and then Monday will be part 3 of Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of Week in Review. If you like the content, you can scroll on down and you can hit that subscribe button. You can do it twice like I did. Bam, bam. 2 subscribers, 2 subscriptions. You'll have to sign into a second account, but you'll figure it out. Be sure to leave me your best games and movies of the year down in the comments below. Head on over to twitch.tv/ShaunosaurusRex to catch the streams, and check back every Tuesday for more Week in Review. We'll see you next week.